ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Isopanishads bhaktisashtri study. Yesterday we completed mantra 3. So today we will take up mantra 4. From the invocation to mantra 3, there is a particular theme. And the Ishavasya principle is discussed in mantra 1. Living in harmony with Ishavasya principle is discussed in mantra 2. And living in disharmony with the Ishavasya principle is discussed in mantra 3. Now, from mantras 4 onwards, such is the heavy warning given that Asuryanam te loka andena tamasavrita tamste preta vigachanti ye che atmano jana. So you'll enter the hellish planets if you don't live along with this Isha Vasya principle. So it becomes pertinent that one should know the Ishvara and live according to the Ishavasya principle. So, how do you know the Ishwar? That theme is discussed in mantras 4 to 8. So, let us now today begin with the mantra 4 of the Sri Ishopanishads. अनेजदेकं मनसो जवीयो नैतदेवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वमार्षत् तद्धावतो अन्यानत्येति तिष्ठत् तस्मिन्नापो मातरिश्वा ददाति. Although fixed in his abode, anejad ekam, he is fixed in his abode. Is that one absolute reality who's fixed, doesn't move, is fixed in his abode. The personality of Godhead, Enath, is swifter than the mind. Manaso javiyo. and can overcome all others running. Tad dhavato anyan atteti. The powerful demigods, Deva, cannot approach him. Na apnuyan enat. Although in one place, tishtati tasmin, he controls those who supply the air and rain. Apo matarishva. He controls the Ishwaras of this world, the Devas especially. He surpasses all in excellence. Purvam Arshat. So the connection to this mantra 4 is the invocation to Isha Upanishads is there, then the Isha Vasya principle in mantra 1, 2 and 3 living in harmony and disharmony, and the consequences was especially discussed in mantra 3. Now, to live in harmony with Ishwar, we must know the Ishwar. How to know the Ishwar is discussed in this section of mantras 4 to 8, as I was mentioning. Now let's go to the overview of Ishopanishads again. So now this is an overview of only mantras 4 to 8. Ishwar can be understood by spiritual vision. So how to know the Ishwar? By spiritual vision. So the first thing what is discussed in mantras 4 and 5 is it shows how the Ishwar is inconceivable to our intelligence. If the Ishwar is conceivable to our intelligence, then our intelligence becomes superior to God. So the Ishwar is inconceivable to our intelligence. These are spoken in mantras 4 and 5, and especially the contradictory attributes of the Ishwar will be discussed in mantra 5. And then, okay, this is how the Ishwar is inconceivable. So then how do I understand? By spiritual vision, but mantra 6 and 7 mention how first develop spiritual vision by seeing worldly things, events, and people with equanimity. So when we can see worldly things, events, and people with equal vision, then the Lord, the absolute truth, who is beyond this world, then we can see him by spiritual vision. So first develop vision by which you can see the things of this world with equanimity. And then with that vision taken forward, you can see the Lord by spiritual vision. And this vision, further developed and directed to Ishvara, helps to understand him. So the divine qualities of the Ishwar will be specifically discussed in mantra 8. So this is the overview of mantras 4 to 8. And today we will be taking mantra 4. And that shows how Ishwar is inconceivable to our intelligence. Srila Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas makes a very emphatic point that the absolute truth has achintya shakti, inconceivable potencies. And as long as we don't accept that the absolute truth has inconceivable potencies, we cannot understand the absolute truth. So that's also a very similar theme here in mantras 4 and 5. Okay. Now, let's come to now the overview of mantra 4. So paragraph 1 mentions that the absolute truth can't be understood by speculation. That's the theme in paragraph 1. So if it can't be understood by speculation, then how do we understand? Revelation helps to understand God and his energies. So Prabhupada in paragraph speaks about God and his energies. So by understanding the energy, you can understand the energetic. So the Shakti and the Shaktis, Shaktiman and the Shaktis are discussed in paragraph 2. And what is the understanding we get from this? What is that understanding? That the energies are non-different yet different. How do we understand that it is different and yet non-different? As we are limited, we can understand the unlimited only through his revelation. So this is the theme in paragraph 4, that we are limited and we cannot understand the unlimited, but only when he reveals. And how the revelation will happen? The revelation happen when we play our part. So play your part and you will be given the understanding. So paragraphs 5 to 7 speak about playing our part. When we play our part, the revelation will happen. So this, which is in slant, it's like the connection between all these paragraphs. Okay. So these are not, the themes are here. Maybe I should color it differently. The themes are here, and what is the connection between each of these paragraphs is being discussed in this particular section. The themes are here. Okay. So now let us go to paragraph 1. If you have any questions, you can always raise your hand. Huh? Okay, let's go to paragraph 1 of Sri Isopanishads. Okay, so who will read paragraph 1? Devhuti Kapil Prabhuji, can you read paragraph 1?
Yes, Prabhu. Am I audible?
Yeah, very clear.
Yeah.
I'm increasing the fonts.
Yeah, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Through mental speculation, even the greatest philosopher cannot know the Supreme Lord, who is the absolute personality of Godhead. He can be known only by his devotees through his mercy. In Brahma Samhita 5.34, it is stated that even if a non-devotee philosopher travels through space at the speed of the wind or the mind for hundreds of millions of years, he will still find that the absolute truth is far, far away from him. The Brahma Samhita 5.37 further describes that the absolute personality of Godhead has his transcendental abode known as Goloka, where he remains and engages in his pastimes. Yet, by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach every part of his creative energy. In the Vishnu Purana, his potencies are compared to the heat and light that emanate from a fire. Although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat for some distance. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere.
Yeah. Aneja Dekam is situated in one place, but he's spread everywhere. So this is inconceivable to the material intelligence. And here Prabhupada is giving the example from the Vishnu Puran, like fire has heat and light. And heat and light is, it spreads. Fire is in one place, heat and light spreads. So similarly, the absolute is fixed in its abode, but he can spread through his energies. So let's discuss whatever Prabhupada has mentioned in paragraph 1 and some very important concepts related to this. Now, this is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that how the absolute truth can't be understood by speculation. So in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the Eastern Division first wave, after discussing what is the definition of Uttama Bhakti and the 6 characteristics of Uttama Bhakti, uh, Rupa Goswami mentions what is the qualification to understand Bhakti, or qualification to understand Bhagavan is also the same. Bhakti is the Sarup Shakti of Bhagavan. So he quotes this verse, Swalpapi ruchir evasyat. This is his own composition. Bhakti tattvavabodhita yuktistu kevalanaiva yadasya apratishthita. Even if one has a little taste, swalpapi ruchir evasyat, for the topics of bhakti, bhakti tattva, he can understand. Avabodhika. Bodhika means to understand. Bodh means comes from the word buddhi. He who tries to understand bhakti by dry logic cannot understand it. Yukti tu kevala na tu. Yukti means, by one's own intelligence or logic, because logic is insubstantial. Yad asya apratishtita. Apratishtita. So in the purport, it is very clearly mentioned, ruchi or taste in this verse means taste for scriptures such as Bhagavatam that present the true nature of bhakti. This taste arises through previous impressions, previous sangha of sadhus, That ruchi leads one understand the nature of bhakti, the highest position of bhakti. Bhakti tattva avabodhika. Logic, which is dry, kevala, without ruchi, cannot give an understanding of bhakti or Bhagavad Tattva. However, logic along with full taste for the topic of bhakti can give an understanding of it. So logic is there, but it plays uh, not the master's role, but the minister's role. So just not only mere logic, but logic, yukti, along with ruchi, taste for bhakti topics. That ruchi has come because of association with sadhus, pure devotees. So that gives us some taste in the beginning. And then he quotes why logic is insubstantial. A person more skillful at logic can bring about a conclusion different from what is carefully proven previously by another skillful logician. Tarko pratishtat. Tarko pratishtanat. Logic being insubstantial can prove the opposite. So in the Vedanta Sutra also, Vyasdev is mentioning that logic is insubstantial. And then this is quoted. Tarko aparitishta shrutayo vibhinna nasa rishirasya matam hi na bhinnam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guyayam mahajano yena gata sapanta. Dry arguments are inconclusive. Tarko apratishta. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Nasa rishir yasya matam na bhinnam. A rishi is one who comes up with his, own philosophical understanding. Then only is considered as a rishi. Simply by studying the Vedas, Shrutaya, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles can be understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of unadulterated, self-realized person. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya. It is there in the heart of the Mahajans. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans set on. Mahajana yena gatastahi panta. So that's why logic is insubstantial. And Prabhupada, I'll just take the questions. Let me finish these two quotations. Prabhupada quotes this verse, Pantastu koti shatavatsarya sampragamyo vayo rathapi manuso munipungavana. Sopyastiyas Sopya astiyat prapada saminna avichanta tatve govindamadi purusham tam aham vajami. So even if you speculate and travel at the speed of mind or speed of wind for millions and millions of years, you cannot reach Munipungavan, your Munipungavan. You cannot reach to the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is the point. And then Prabhupada is quoting how the absolute truth, Goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuto. He is residing in Golok Vrindavan and performing his wonderful pastimes. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pati Bhavitabhis. And he's spread by his expansive rasa, expansive energies. He's spread by that. So these are the two quotations Prabhupada is giving, 5.34 and 5.37. The next quotation Prabhupada is quoting is from the Vishnu Puran. So the point here is that the absolute truth cannot be understood just by speculation. But the infinite reveals to the finite. And how does he reveal? Through increasing devotional dedication. That is the way. Otherwise, just by mere speculation, it's not possible. So how that revelation happens through devotional dedication, I'm quoting here from one of the purports of Prabhupada in the Srimad Bhagavatam when Arjuna comes back and tells Yudhishthira that the Lord has left and gone to his abode. And then he is recollecting and remembering every event in his memory. And suddenly he remembers those instructions which he was imparted on the battlefield. And in that purport, Prabhupada says The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Now, the Lord was not visible to Arjuna's eyesight. So again, he took shelter of those instructions. He remembered those instructions on the battlefield, and that is how he pacified and gave solace to his heart. Now, this is that statement. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. So, just like the bulb is 10 watts or 50 watts, that is the jiva. And the absolute truth is like the sun. I don't know how many million watts you can say, the amount of light which is emanating from the sun. So the bulb, which is just 50 watts or 100 watts, how can it really fathom, the light and the of the sun? So the sun ultimately has to manifest its energy through the bulb, and the bulb also has to sustain it. What can happen if a heavy current passes through a bulb which is not, the fuse might break and it might explode. So it will not explode also. Why? Because of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. The Lord will hold it. So the Lord, it's like manifesting uh, through the sense perception of the contingent souls. And it is through the agency of matter he can manifest. The Lord can manifest because matter is also his energy. So this is how the revelation happens. The infinite can reveal to the finite. So that is the theme. And another quotation is from the Bhagavad Gita. This is from 9.1 in the Bhagavad Gita purport. Prabhupada says the devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. Dadami Udyogam Tam. Discussion of Krishna is very potent. And if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual knowledge. So one has to assimilate the knowledge, not that here. One has to hear, one has to meditate, contemplate, and then assimilate. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasan. So when he assimilates, then he can make advancement. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this 9th chapter matters more confidential than any he has already disclosed. That is why it's called as a Rajguya. So this is Bhagavad Gita 9.1 to purport. So there is another point here I would like to make is the more potent the service is, then the Lord will reveal. So the point is the more a devotee takes up, very important task in the mission and the service of the Lord, then the Lord also reciprocates by giving, him that confidential knowledge, that confidential. The more potent the service, the deeper is the revelation of the Lord to that devotee. That is the point. And the last part, what Prabhupada had quoted was this verse from the Vishnu Puran. Eka deshas sitasyagnir jostista vistarni yata parasya brahmana shaktis tatedam akhilam jagat. Whatever we see in this world is but an expansion of various energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parasya Brahmana Shakti, which is like the fire, Agni, that spreads illumination for a long distance, although it is situated in one place. Ekadeshas, Vistirna, Jyotyasna Vishnir, Vistirna Yatha. So this is the verse Prabhupada is quoting in this particular paragraph 1. Okay, so any questions on this? Devhuti Kapil Prabhuji had a question. Yes.
Prabhuji, can you
So,
just go back to the previous slides? I had a question on one of the previous slides. You just
okay.
mentioned that a great personality, one who comes up with a different conclusion. So that particular slide.
Tarko Pratishto.
Yeah, this one. So it says you called out here that a great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great
A great
sage.
sage.
So what if you have two Vedic philosophers? Ultimately, they have to arrive at a conclusion that Krishna is the absolute truth or supreme. So in that point of time, how can opinion not differ is not considered a great sage? How do I understand this?
So these are called as Muni. A Muni is one who comes up with his own darshan. And that's why there are Shad darshans, if you know. And among them, especially excluding the Uttar Mimamsa or the Vedanta darshan of Vyasdev, it gives the right conclusion of the Vedas that the absolute truth is Bhagwan Shri Krishna. But the other Munis, they derive their philosophy based on the source knowledge of Vedas. But according to them, they say this is the understanding of the absolute truth. That the absolute truth, like the Karma Mimamsa says, although there is an absolute reality, but he is also bound by karma. That is their understanding. So karma is pradhan. If you do your karma, then he is bound to give the results. He is also bound by the laws of karma, they say. But it is not so. So they come up with these darshans, and that's why they are called as munis. So
So can we, okay.
one muni differs, in his opinion, and he differs and he defeats others and presents a higher understanding. That is what does a muni mean. But that understanding might not be the absolute understanding or the absolute darshan given by
Hmm.
Vyasdev. That's why um, Vyasdev's darshan refutes all other darshans and establishes, the Vedanta darshan as the highest darshan and the real teaching of the Vedas. Otherwise, if you approach the Vedas, even if you are highly learned, if you are self-controlled and you have studied all the Vedas, still you cannot understand the conclusion of the Vedas as Vedeshu Sarver Aham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Videha Chaham. You cannot come to that understanding. So that's why we have to follow, the path of Guru Shish Parampara, Mahajana Inagatasmana. Then there are 12 Mahajans. Only when we follow them, then we can understand. Because although there is scripture, but the scripture is actually revealed in the heart of the practitioner who is situated in the Guru Shish Parampara. And because he is practicing the teachings, so scriptures are not even only hand scripts, but they are heart scripts. So it's not just simply by reading scriptures you can become a self-realized soul. No, you'll have to follow the great Mahajans, and then only uh, you know the teachings of the scriptures will be revealed, not just by merely studying the scriptures. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. I now understand it better. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, Sri Valli Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, just now we were discussing that more potent the service,
Mhm.
the better. But when we read NOD, was not the whole point of NOD that whatever seva that you are doing, it's the bhava which is of prime importance, but not the seva itself. Because whatever seva you can do, the bhava with which we do it is much more important. So how do we understand that, Prabhu?
Yes, the mood bhav has to be there, but here I mean the more responsibilities you take uh, uh, for the Lord service, the Lord will also bless you with that kind of levels of realization. And we see all leaders in ISKCON today that the more responsibilities they have taken and they have been blessed with realizations and they have made advancement also. And yes, but the mood also has to be there. It's not that, because I'm doing higher responsibilities, I'm taking more responsibilities, I look others as inferior, then it might create offenses. And artificially also you should not have that I'm doing great services, so others are inferior and all. But the point is that when you should take responsibilities in the service of the Lord, in the mission of the Lord, and the Lord will bless with the realizations. That is the point which I wanted to make. I hope it is clear.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. So now let's come to paragraph 2. So paragraph 2 is basically that the absolute truth is not understood by speculation. Then how do we understand? Revelation helps to understand God and his energies. So God and his energies is what Prabhupada is going to now speak in the second paragraph. So you can see the connection here. Prabhupada spoke in the Vishnu Puran, fire and heat and light. Fire is energetic, heat and light are the energies of fire. So now he speaks about the energies here. Who will discuss, who will read paragraph 22? Any volunteers? Or I select. Yes, Nitya Sevini Mataji. Yes.
Okay. Although his energies are innumerable, they can be divided into three principal categories: the internal potency, the marginal potency, and the external potency. There are hundreds and millions of subheadings of each of these categories. The dominating demigods who are empowered to control and administer such natural phenomena as air, light, and rain are all classified within the marginal potency of the absolute person. Lesser living beings, including humans, also belongs to the Lord's marginal potency. The material world is the creation of the Lord's external potency, and the spiritual sky, where the kingdom of God is situated, is the manifestation of his internal potency.
So here in paragraph 2, Prabhupada is speaking about the energies. There are three principal categories. Remember, there are how many energies of the Lord? They are unlimited, but they are principally divided into three. And Prabhupada is mentioning here, under them, there are unlimited subheadings. Millions, he says, hundreds and millions of subheadings, even in the internal, marginal, and the external also. And then Prabhupada says the dominating demigods are also part of the Tatastha Shakti, including the human beings. So the understanding is what revelation helps us to understand God and his energies. Now, a very important concept I'm going to discuss, and I think which we are not familiar, which I'm going to discuss this very important point, what Prabhupada is saying. So here, this is the concept of synthesis and analysis, God and his energies. Now, fire emanates heat and light. Heat and light are, in one sense, we see it as one thing. They are one. And at the same time, we see it as different also. Because, the amount of heat which is there in amount of, warmth which is there in the heat is not the same warmth which is there in fire. Right? And the amount of light which is there in front of fire is not the same which is, radiating out. It's different. So the energies here means the Bhairanga Shakti and the, Tatastha Shakti are like heat and light. And the Antaraka Shakti is like the Lord. So we see them as one also, and we see them as what? Different also. So in thinking, there are two types. One is analysis, other is synthesis. So synthesis and analysis. Synthesis means to see it as one. Analysis means to break it and see them as separate. So now let's take the example of a computer. When you're working on a computer, you have your keypad, you have your mouse, and you see the whole computer as one unit. But when there is some breakdown with the computer, then you start analyzing. Maybe take the mouse out and see whether the mouse is functioning, maybe the CPU is functioning properly, the connections there. So now you are the whole computer unit which you always saw as one. Now you start breaking it to analyze, where what has gone wrong. Similarly, in grammar also, especially in Sanskrit, the words, we see them as one, but Vyakarani is one who studied Vyakarana. He will break it and analyze it, the same word, and come out with the deeper meaning of it. And if you see a flower, one who is an artist, his view of seeing the flower is through synthesis. He sees the beauty of the flower and he sees one thing: how beautiful is the flower. Whereas a botanist, when he sees the flower, he'd see it from an analytical point of view. Oh, here are the petals, here is the stamina, here is, he'll break it and analyze it. So always in thinking, there is always this, analysis and synthesis which is happening. Now, Krishna consciousness is also like that. Suppose, you meet a Krishna conscious devotee and he's happy, he's blissful, and seeing him also you become happy. But then you start analyzing, why is he happy? What is the reason? Because he's chanting Hare Krishna and he's pleasing the Lord. He's pleasing the Lord, and that's why he's also experiencing happiness. So that is analysis. So like that, in thinking, there is always these two types. Synthesis make things work. Analysis helps us to understand how things work. So this is how both have a correlation between synthesis analysis. Analysis means you want to understand how is the computer working. Then you have to break and see things. And synthesis means you're working, you make things work. If you're too analytical that time, you cannot proceed ahead. So synthesis make things work, and analysis help us to understand how things work. Now, based on this concept of synthesis and analysis, synthesis means to see sometimes thing as one. Analysis means to break and see things and how they are different. So this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, I'm going to read, and you have to see, tell me whether it is synthesis. This thinking is synthesis or analysis. Mamevamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana manashashtani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. This eternal Jiva, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, one of my parts, Mama Evamsha, drags with it Karshati, the senses, and the sixth sense called the mind. Mana Shashtani Indriyani. So the Indriyas are five. You know what are the five Indriyas? And there is a sixth Indriya, which is the mind, which are situated in the bewildering Prakriti. Jiva Loke Prakriti Stani. So here, uh, you know, sometimes, the mind is included as the sixth sense, and sometimes the mind is separated because it is an internal sense organ from the five senses. So here you have to tell me whether it is synthesis or it is analysis. Think about it, please, carefully, and raise your hands. No one. Priya Mataji. Okay. Anyone else? Two hands have been raised only. Are all others there participating in this? Okay. Two more hands. Three more hands. Okay. Let's ask Priya Mataji. whether it is synthesis or analysis. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just try. This is synthesis and analysis both, because initially
No,
Lord
it
is
is either synthesis or analysis. Not,
it is synthesis then, because he says Jiva Bhuta are one of my parts. So
no, here we are speaking about synthesis and analysis about the senses, not about the living beings.
so sorry, Prabhuji, next time. Sorry.
Okay, okay. I know it is a little difficult. Yes, somebody else also had raised their hands. Yes, Partha. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, and pranams. Synthesis.
How it is synthesis? Tell me.
Lord is just trying to see it as one and tell to Arjuna. He is not breaking what is the five senses what in detail. He's not talking about the mind in detail. He's not talking about Prakriti in detail.
Okay. Okay. Devahuti Kapil Prabhuji. Yes.
So, Prabhu, I think it is analysis
Analysis. Okay. Why you say it is analysis?
because the Lord breaks down the jiva. He says one of my parts, and then
No,
further
again, here
breaks.
it is not about the Jiva and the Lord. Here it is only about the senses.
But it eventually breaks down what the jiva carries, right?
No, we are not speaking here about the Jiva. Here we are speaking about the senses. Manashashtani Indriyani is our focus.
Okay.
He's struggling very hard with the five senses, including the mind. Sixth sense is the mind.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Yes, Lakshmi Narsimhan Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I might be wrong. It might be analysis.
How it is
Uh,
analysis?
because here he is specifically mentioning mind, or else he could have just mentioned Shashtan Indriyani, which would have ultimately meant mind along with the five senses. But since mind has been separately mentioned here, so he's focusing more on mind along with the other senses. So that is separation, specifically focusing on one part.
Okay, so let's see this verse. Vedanam Samavedosmi, Devanam Asmi Vasava, Indriyanam Manaschasmi, Bhutanam Chasmi Chetana. Among the Vedas, I am Sam. Among the Devatas, I am Indra. Among the senses, I am mind. Among the senses, I am mind. So that means here all the senses are included. They are taken as one. This is synthesis. Whereas here it is analysis. The sixth sense is the mind. Are you getting this? The sixth sense is the mind here. But among all the senses means the mind is also included in it. So among these senses, which is superior? The mind is superior. So like that, both synthesis and analysis is, helps us, in understanding Shastra. Synthesis makes things work. Analysis helps us to understand how things work. So when you suddenly get attracted to a sense object and the mind also is attracted, you see it as one thing and you enjoy it. And then you analyze, why did I get attracted to it? Because, then you analyze, because the mind and the senses worked as one. So now I have to separate the senses from the mind, so, and then from the soul, like that. So like that, synthesis make things work. Analysis helps us to understand how things work. So that is why this concept of synthesis and analysis is very important. Always when we see, we have to see synthetically and then also analytically. Both these are important, are very, very important. So similarly, when we see fire, heat and light, we see it as one thing. But analysis means, no, there is a difference between fire, heat and light. Fire is Supreme Vishnu. Heat and light actually are the energies. He's Shaktiman, there is Shakti. And they, although they are not different, but there is difference. So energies have been spoken here by Srila Prabhupada. That is the internal, marginal, and the external. The dominating demigods are part of the marginal, and the material world is part of the external potency of the Lord. So this is how we need to understand the God and his energies with the help of this concept of synthesis and analysis. Okay, so now let's go to paragraph 3. Okay, who will read paragraph 3? Paragraph 3. Rajeshwari Mataji, right? Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, sorry, Prabhu, I didn't change the name. Paragraph 3. Thus, the different energies of the Lord are present everywhere. Although the Lord and his energies are non-different, one should not mistaken these energies for the supreme truth. Nor should one wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally or that he loses his personal existence. Men are accustomed to reaching conclusion according to their capacity for understanding, but the Supreme Lord is not subject to our limited capacity for understanding. It is for this reason that the Upanishad warns us that no one can approach the Lord by his own limited potency.
So the Lord and his energies are present everywhere. And, because the energy is distributed everywhere, just like heat and light are impersonal, whereas fire is personal because fire has a form. So just because the Lord is, spread in this creation in the form of heat and light, one should not consider the Lord as impersonal. So with our limited potency, we can come to this kind of a conclusion. And that is why this Upanishads, each Upanishads is warning us not to approach the Lord with our limited material intelligence. So here, I'm giving an example to understand the Lord and his energies. Fire burns. This is given by Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas. Now, fire and burns, these two statements, take these two words, fire and burns. Is it same or different? Think about it. Now we have understood the concept of synthesis and analysis. Apply that concept and think about it. Fire burns. Is this, are these two words same or different? Kindly don't write your answers in the text box. It is only to be used if the audio is not working. Otherwise, please raise your hands. Darya, Gaurang Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, it's a different because fire is separate things and its result is burns. So both are different. Fire causes a result as burning like that. I hope so, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Both are different, Prabhu. Fire is a thing and its property is, fire's property is burning.
Action of that energy, action of that energy. I hope now the audio is clear, right? So this is how we should understand the energy and the energetic. Energy and the energetic. Okay, so now the next paragraph, paragraph 4. I hope this was clear. Paragraph 3. Paragraph 4. Partharthi Prabhu. You have a question or you want to read? Okay, so regarding this third paragraph, we mentioned how the energy and the energetic are same as well as different. And because the energies are spread and the Lord is also there in the energy, it doesn't mean that the Lord is impersonal. And that kind of a conclusion we might come because of our limited potency, but Isopanisad warns us. And for that, we gave this example, fire burns. And these two words, fire and burning, are the same as well as different. Fire is the source of energy, and burning is the action of that energy. It's the action of that energy. So I hope this is clear now. So let's go to paragraph 4. Any questions on this, or you would like to go to paragraph 4 now? So who will read paragraph 4? Anyone would like to volunteer to read Lakshmi Narasimhan Prabhuji? Paragraph 4.
Yeah. So, in the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, the Lord says that not even the great rishis and suras can know him. And what to speak of the asuras, for whom there is no question of understanding the ways of the Lord. This fourth mantra of Sri Isopanisad very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no need to mention so many details in support of his personal features.
So, Prabhupada is quoting 10.2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Name Vidur Suragana Prabhavancha Maharshaya Aham Adiri Devana Maharshinam Cha Sarvasha. The Devatas and the great rishis, Suragana Maharsha, do not know about my extraordinary powers. Na Vidu me Prabhavam. Since I am the source of the Devatas, Aham Adiri Devanam, and the great rishis, Maharshinam Cha Sarvasha. So because, Lord is the source of the Devatas and the Rishis, they cannot know the Lord. Once a very senior devotee went to a house. I was there with him, and the family was there, and their children were there. And both the Prabhu and Mataji's, their wedding photo was there. And the senior devotee just jokingly asked, the children, "Hey, you're not there in this photo in the wedding. You did not attend the wedding." And he was a little taken aback because he was young, because he was not there. He was not born. So similarly, Krishna exists, Aham evam, that famous Chaturshloki Bhagavatam verse is there, that I existed before this creation. So nobody can know the Lord because the Lord existed all of us before. We came into existence because of the Lord, and it is impossible for us to know the Lord. Later on in the further mantras, it will come that even the great demigods consider that the absolute truth is not Vishnu, that Vishnu also derives his power from impersonal Brahman. So even the Devatas had a conception that ultimately the absolute truth is impersonal. So that such is the power of Lord's Maya. And here in this Isopanisad verse, inconceivable attributes of the Lord are given, which prove that he is he's a person. He's a person. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. He's a person. So now the last theme is from paragraphs 5, 6, and 7. And the theme is a standard theme that, how revelation will happen. You play your part and you will be given the understanding. You just play your part, whatever you are, and you just play your part, and then the revelation will happen. In paragraph 4, we saw, as we are limited, we can understand the unlimited only through his revelation. Otherwise, even the great Devatas also cannot understand. So let's go to paragraph 5, 6, and 7. So let us first take paragraph 5. So let's go to paragraph 5. This is paragraph 5. Who will read? I think those who have read will give chance to those who have not read. Parsartitvanji, yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Although the individual parts and parcels of the Lord's potencies have all the symptoms of the Lord himself, they have limited spheres of activity and are therefore all limited. The parts and parcels are never equal to the whole. Therefore, they cannot appreciate the Lord's full potency. Under the influence of material nature, foolish and ignorant living beings who are but parts and parcels of the Lord try to conjecture about the Lord's transcendental position. Sri Ishopanishad warns of the futility of trying to establish the identity of the Lord through mental speculation. One should try to learn of the transcendence from the Lord himself, the supreme source of the Vedas, for the Lord alone has full knowledge of the transcendence.
So the individual part and parcels are Lord's marginal potency. And there is difference between potency and potent. The Lord is potent, and the living beings are potencies of the Lord, shaktis of the Lord. And they have the symptoms of the Lord, but what? There is limited sphere of activity. The jivas can create maybe by their mystic power some planets also, like Kardamuli. But the jivas cannot create Brahmandas. It's only Mahavishnu who can create Brahmandas. So there is potency, but it is limited. And therefore they are limited. And that's why they are never equal to the whole. And that's why they cannot fully understand the Lord's full potency. And it's only being conditioned that these part and parcels try to understand, the all-potent Lord. And that's why Isopanisad is warning not to mentally speculate about, the absolute truth. And the best way to know transcendence is from the Lord himself. Tat Shunu, Bhagavad Gita 7.1. So here, these are the verses. Avyaktam Vyaktimapanna Manyate Mam Abuddhaya. The unintelligent Abuddhaya Manyate. What? Think that the impersonal Brahman, Avyakta, has manifested an illusory form as myself. Mam Vyaktim Apanna. So because, we have this limited potency, when we hear this verse that the Lord is situated in one place, but he's spread everywhere, he runs. He's fixed in one place, but he runs faster than, how is it possible? And the Lord is there in Golok Vrindavan, and he's everywhere here. How is it possible? Now, material hands and legs are only here, limited to our body. They are not everywhere. So we don't have this understanding. So the Lord has spiritual hands and legs, which can be everywhere. The Lord has eyes everywhere. The Lord, although He is present in Golok Vrindavan, but when the devotee offers him bhoga with love and devotion, the Lord being in Golok Vrindavan, He can accept from there. His hands are so, powerful that they can reach to the bhoga and He can accept it personally. So how? Because He has got spiritual hands. He's got spiritual hands. So when we even read, we might come to a conclusion that avyaktam vyaktimapan, that, He's impersonal, but now He has manifested a form. They do not know my transcendental nature consisting of form, qualities, and activities. Mam param bhava ajananta, which is eternal and most excellent. Anuttamam avyamam. So this is what, we might conjuncture and, we might come not to understand the transcendental position of the Lord. So this is the warning Isopanisad is given, and Gita also, Krishna also says. And in 9.11 also he says, Avajananti Mamuda Manusham Tanumashita Param Bhavam Ajananto Mama Bhuta. The fools deride me, Avajananti Mamuda, the Lord of all fools, Bhuta Maheshwaram. In this eternal form, Manusham Tanumashita, not knowing it is my original spiritual form, pure Brahman, higher than all else. Ma Param Bhavam Ajananto. So these both are translations of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that the two-handed form of Shyam Sundar Krishna, this Manusham Tanumashita, the eternal two-handed form, is actually the original form. And it is, higher than all other forms, even the four-handed Narayan form or all other forms of Vaikuntha. So that is the explanation of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So they think, we human beings also have two-handed and the Lord is two-handed, it's like the Lord is, similar like us. So that is kind of, Avajananti Mamuda. So they think that God is made in the image of, man is made in the image of God, they say that. So like that, they can have misconceptions. So these are the two verses we can quote for this paragraph. Now in paragraph 6 is a very, very interesting paragraph. And Prabhupada speaks about how every part and parcel of the complete whole is endowed with some particular energy to act according to the Lord's will. So every jiva, is endowed with a certain particular potency. When the part and parcel of the living entity forgets his particular activities in the Lord's will, he is considered to be in Maya, illusion. Thus, from the very beginning, Sri Isopanisad warns us to be careful to play the part designated for us by the Lord. This does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative of his own. Because he is a part and parcel of the Lord, he must partake of the initiative of the Lord as well. When the person properly utilizes his initiative or the active nature with intelligence, understanding that everything is Lord's potency, he can revive his original consciousness, which is lost due to association with Maya. The point what Prabhupada is trying to make in this paragraph is that every living entity is endowed with a particular potency of the Lord. And this potency has to be engaged in the Lord's service according to the Lord's will. Now, Arjuna was playing the role of a Kshatriya, and Kshatriya is a warrior, and he did not want to engage his potency in the war. And that's why Krishna spoke the Gita, and Arjuna used his potency of a fighter according to the Lord's will. And thereby, he attained the Lord. Otherwise, that potency is there, it will be used in Maya service, and he'll fall more in illusion. And Prabhupada is making a very important point here that, this does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative on its own. This is a very, very important and a remarkable statement of Prabhupada. So I'll just take some points and explain this very important point. We are to be a part of Krishna's plan. Don't live apart from Krishna. So Prabhupada said, Mahaprabhu and associates came and did the Sankirtan movement. And the same Sankirtan movement is continuing now in the Hare Krishna movement. So we are still taking part in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan. It is continuing. So we have to be part of the Sankirtan movement in order to execute the Lord's will. Just like Rupa and Sanatan were executing the will of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by participating in the Sankirtan movement and playing whatever potency we have, we use that potency in Krishna service, we are actually participating in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan Andolan. Play your part and will be given the understanding. Part and parcel is endowed with a particular potency. Our material talents come from God and we have to be used in God's service. So this is what Prabhupada is speaking in that purport. Now the karmis exhibit their talent and expand material existence. And their philosophy is live here and die here. So some like singing ability, they become singers and then, they go on holding big concerts and collect a lot of money and name and fame. So their false ego is getting only expanded and their tenure in the material world is going to increase more and more. The Jnanis suppress their talents and say everything in this world is false. All this music is false. This is Maya. Now we have this talent of singing. The devotees, what they do? They use their talents in the service of the Lord. The world is real, but temporary, and real life in the spiritual world. Singing songs. What's the singing ability? What is there? We use for singing bhajans. For singing bhajans. So this is what Prabhupada is saying. Now this verse is an interesting verse. Rasoam apsu kaunteya prabhasmi sasishuryo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdake paurusham vrushu. I am the taste of water. Rasoam apsu kaunteya. The light of the sun and moon. Prabha asmi shashishuryo. I am the pranava in the Vedas. Pranava sarva vedeshu. Sound in the ether. Sabdake. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to hear the sound of the railway, and he used to think that sound is the sound of the flute of Krishna. That was how, he used to read it. And successful efforts of man. Now, this is the most important point here. Paurusham Rishu. This is Baldev Vidyabhushan's translation. If abilities are coming from Krishna, if we don't use in the Lord's service, then they will take you away from Krishna. So whatever ability, whatever potency one is endowed, that ability is also given by Krishna and we should use it in Krishna's service. And Srila Prabhupada had such an expansion vision that Prabhupada said, science must also be used to glorify God. And that's why he established what is called as the Bhaktivedanta Institute. How by science we should prove that God exists. So, the potency, paurusham, ability is also coming from me. Now, Prabhupada spoke about initiative. Couple our intelligence with Krishna's intelligence, according to Krishna's will. Now, Srila Prabhupada on devotional service said, devotional service is individual, voluntary, and spontaneous. Everyone is a unique individual. And, the devotee is inspired to take initiative. Prabhupada spoke about it here. Remember this statement. This does not mean that the individual has no initiative on his own. He can take his initiative. He has to volunteer to, do something for Krishna service. And it should come naturally, spontaneously. So there is a famous pastime of how Prabhupada in one Europe country had come and many European leaders had come there. And they were all giving reports to Prabhupada. And one Prabhupada disciple was sitting and hearing. And he was appreciating all his God brothers who were great leaders who were doing so much service for Prabhupada. And he told, after they all went, he told Prabhupada, all your God brothers are doing distribution, preaching. I would also like to please you. What you want me to do, to please you. So Prabhupada said, what you would like to do for Krishna? Prabhupada asked. Then this devotee started thinking and analyzing, maybe Prabhupada is testing me. No, Prabhupada, you tell me what, what I should do to please you. Then Prabhupada made the same point, that what you would like to do to please Krishna. And this time, he said, it's not proper to tell the spiritual master, I would like to do this. Again, he asked the same thing. Prabhupada made the point again, what you would like to do for Krishna. Then he said, let me think about it and come back. Okay, come back tomorrow, he said, Prabhupada. So he thought a lot, and in the night he was inspired, and next day morning he said, Prabhupada, especially in European countries, the mud mridangas, which were made of mud, they break. And there is so much, we have been trying to transport it from India, and so much endeavor is going, and it easily breaks. So I thought, let me make plastic mridangas, fiber mridangas, not plastic, fiber mridangas. Prabhupada said, yes. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna is giving you the intelligence. And then he was the first devotee who came up with this concept of a fiber mridanga. And he himself, made the fiber mridanga. And now this is very famous. And till now he is doing the same service. So the point is that, it's not that, Prabhupada is saying this does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative of his own. He should take the initiative because he's a part and parcel. He must partake the initiative of the Lord as well. So it was confirmed by Srila Prabhupada also then. And when the person utilizes initiative, active nature and intelligence, and uses the things, everything, understanding that they are Lord's potency, then he can revive his Krishna consciousness which is lost due to association of Maya. So that's the point regarding paragraph 6. Okay, I'll just finish paragraph 7 and then take questions. All power is obtained from the Lord. Therefore, each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord and not otherwise. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted such a submissive service attitude. Prabhupada gives what is perfect knowledge definition. Perfect knowledge means knowing the Lord in all features, knowing his potencies, and knowing how these potencies work by his will. So this is a beautiful definition of what is perfect knowledge. Knowing the Lord in all his features means Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Knowing his potencies, the Antaranga Shakti, Bhairanga Shakti, and the Tatastha Shakti, and how these energies are working according to the Lord's will. These matters are described by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all Upanishads. Prabhupada always makes that point. So when Duryodhan spoke very harsh words to Vidura, in that assembly, Vidura left his bow and arrow, and he decided to leave the palace and go on a pilgrimage. And he understood that those words were actually coming from the Lord, and it was the Lord's will that he should now go for Tirthyatra. So how the potencies are working by the Lord's will, we should understand. We should understand the Lord in all his features, and we should also know all the potencies of the Lord. So that is perfect knowledge. So that completes our theme discussion. Play your part, and you will be given the understanding. Okay, any questions on this you have? This is a very important concept. Devotional service is individual, voluntary, and spontaneous. I gave that one example of the fiber mridanga. So any questions, any clarifications regarding paragraph 5 to 7? Yeah, Ananda Kishore Mataji. Yes. Yes, Mataji, you can speak. Maybe your audio, you have to, set it right, because yesterday also your audio is not functioning. Or you have to type them.
Is it better?
Yeah, now it is working. Yeah.
Yes. So, Prabhuji, my question was that we've not, like the way we've been raised, we hear in Krishna book like how in spiritual world the children are taught 64 arts, but what we grew up learning, it's totally different. So how do we know what activities we should be doing, because there's thorough training needed to practice devotional service. And in temple when we go, we do whatever is necessary, like if there's service in the cooking or cleaning, so wherever there's requirement we go. But how do we know what is our particular activity?
Yes. Very, very important question this is. I'll give an example of somebody who is, taken a training in a particular skill like carpentry, and he has taken his 1 year or 2 year course, and then he joins a company. It's a, wood manufacturing company which manufactures chairs, tables, or whatever it is. So initially, when he goes, he's under, he's in apprenticeship. What is it called? And he is working under a experienced person, and he does whatever he says. We will just make this drawing and just cut, according to the dimensions. He does that, and then then you join them, and slowly over a period of time, he now can now do come up with his own creative designs, and then he gets the inspiration now that now let me make a different model. So only when he's able to mature and grow like this, then he's inspired to be in that field, and he feels an inner growth. So similarly in spiritual life, yes, in the beginning of our practices, we are under the seniors, and it's not that I'm inspired now to do this. I joined just 1 year back, and I'm inspired now that I should build a temple for the Lord. But you need the capabilities, you need the skill, you need the teamwork. So many things are there, and that has not yet come. So initially, we need to do what the under our superiors, under our mentors, whatever services they have told. But as we get matured, we would like to render devotional service more spontaneously, and we would like to volunteer to do something for the Lord. And that inspiration, when it comes, that should be encouraged. And the leaders also should be mature. And actually, the Bhakti Lata, this is a very subtle topic, but I will bring it up. When Rupa Goswami defines pure devotion, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyana Anukulena Krishna no Shilana Bhakti Ruttama. The Bhakti Lata, or the Bhakti, is not obstructed by karma or jnana. In the material world, the latas need support, but the Bhakti Lata is free to move up, and it needs no support because Bhakti is independent of karma and jnana. So the Bhakti to grow within our heart, it requires certain freedom to grow. And that comes from, practicing more of taking more initiative for the Lord, practicing what is naturally our talent, whatever talent we have, to use that talent in Krishna's ability and service, and in more of a spontaneous way. And there is where the Bhakti Lata grows. And still at that time, if you are too much constricted by the rules and the regulations, then you feel, I'm getting choked, I'm getting choked. So it requires that we be under mature leaders who can understand our nature and allow us to grow. And that is where, you're like, you have wings now to fly in the sky. But of course, it is under guidance of a spiritual master and Krishna. And the inspiration should come like that. And based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, we chalk out our, everyone is an individual and everyone has some creativity, and that potency has to be used in Krishna service. So that's how we need to do it. I hope this makes some sense.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thanks.
Yes, Audarya, Gauranga Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, actually, still I have little doubt. When we are saying we are parts and parcel of Lord Krishna, then why our mind is not fixed in Krishna consciousness? Always we are trying to focus on Krishna's memory, chanting, even though associating in each and every activities. Why mind is always away from the Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, because manashashtani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. Because now we are become jiva bhuta. Our consciousness is locked in matter. And that's why we are struggling hard. So we have to turn our consciousness to Krishna. Turn our consciousness towards Krishna by practicing Krishna consciousness. And now we can understand the more we are turning towards Krishna, the more our consciousness is pulled towards Maya. Because we have been trapped in this avidya shakti of the Lord. And we are caught in this material consciousness. So because we are Jiva Bhuta, that is the reason. Because we have this gross and subtle bodies, we are locked in Maya.
Means external potency is
Means
working more.
we have to turn our consciousness towards Krishna. That is natural consciousness. But now, Prabhupada gave the example, the natural state of water is liquidity. That is the natural state. That is the dharma of water. And but when the same water is taken in the form of put in those ice cubes and refrigerated, then it turns into ice.
Yes.
Then it's very hard.
Yeah.
So being locked in matter, we are caught in matter. Now we have to go back to that natural state. So when the ice melts, slowly it will come to its natural dharma of liquidity. So similarly, now being caught in matter, conditioned by matter, we have forgotten our real dharma. And we are doing this dharma in the form of sense gratification, dharma artha kama. So we have to go back and revive our consciousness. That's the only way.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Devahuti Kapil Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Probably in the previous answer, like it's a follow-up question from your
I knew that.
previous answer to Mataji. So you mentioned that Bhaktilata can grow freely. It doesn't need support.
Yes.
I was thinking that Bhakti is a creeper and you cannot practice alone. So
No,
it's,
bhakti cannot be
am I missing something
alone.
here?
The bhakti cannot be practiced alone. It has to be practiced in the association of devotees.
Mm-hmm.
But we are speaking about the bhakti lata.
The seed.
Bhakti lata, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu figuratively explains in Charitamrita, just like you sow a seed in the garden and then you water, then slowly it sprouts out and then it starts growing into a tree and then it will give fruits and flowers. Similarly, the spiritual seed get in the association of devotees, which is sown in the heart. Now, heart here means the soul. That desire that I also want to become a pure devotee. When we come in the association, I also want to become a devotee and I also want to practice, become a Krishna Bhakta, and I take up to chanting of the holy names. So with the Shravan Kirtan, we are giving, water to this Bhakti Lata and it starts growing. Now this Lata, what I was explaining, this Lata doesn't need any support of karma and jnana. In fact, this lata grows on its own, and if you try to constrict it from top, then it will not grow. So similarly, bhakti, that's why is it's a sarup shakti of the Lord, and it needs freedom and trust. Freedom and trust is required. When we trust devotees, we feel that we are cared and we are loved. Prabhupada once was sitting in Juhu on the top of his flat and he was taking his massage. And some of the GBC leaders came, Prabhupada, in our temple leaders, the devotees are not, hearing our instructions. They're not following our instructions. Prabhupada just looked at the leaders and said, first give them love. then they will be ready to serve. So Prabhupada, instilled so much love in his disciples' heart, and he had so much trust in his disciples that they were ready to do anything. And they are voluntarily taking so much of services and risk, to propagate the Krishna consciousness. So the bhakti, for it to grow, it requires freedom. That was the point which I was mentioning. So initially, we should also, and even in the later stages, also be always, covered by the fence of association of devotees. But the bhakti lata itself, for it to grow, it doesn't need any support because bhakti is natural, spontaneous, and voluntary. Nobody can put a gun on your head and tell that, you serve me. That's, you might do the service, but it's not done from the heart. So bhakti is a real, natural proclivity of the heart. Now, heart here, I mean the soul. So that was the point. Is it clear?
Yeah, one question. So you said that it doesn't need support of karma and gyan, but we do need more spiritual knowledge for the bhakti lata to fructify and give flowers, right? We do need to.
Yeah, that gyan, what we are speaking is bhakti sambandhit gyan. That is anukul to bhakti. Whereas the gyan which is leading to impersonal Brahman is pratikul to bhakti. So that gyan is forbidden. But the bhakti sambandhit gyan like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, that nourishes our devotion. And the more we attain, how to perform bhakti, that is also knowledge by which we perform more bhakti. And by performing bhakti, we get the realization, we get gyan. So, this gyan is a hetuki. There is no hetu in it, because the more we understand bhakti shastras and practice bhakti according to the bhakti shastras, we more increase our devotion. So, bhakti leads to bhakti. Whereas the jnana of the jnanis, ultimately, there is a motive to attain liberation. So that is not a hetu. There is a hetu in that. So we are speaking about that bhakti sambandhit jnana.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Fine. So we have finished mantra 4. So the next week we will take up mantra 5 onwards. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Isopanisad ki Jai. Hare Krishna.